Hey there lovely people, Jonathan Mark Mendes, Painted Love, and welcome to my channel. For today's project, I'm working on this rather elegant bureau. Now this piece of furniture, I've picked it up for my own home. I've been looking for a while for something with real great bones. I do want to keep this project nice and simple, pared back, but in a contemporary way. How I'm going to do that is probably with colour. Now, my home office sits at the end of a very long corridor upstairs in our house, and for a while I felt like all of my colour scheme around is quite neutral, and I've decided that I want to pop in a real bright pop of colour at the end of the corridor, a real focal point. So this is the piece for me. It's going to be a flat finish, I think. Change of handles to keep it contemporary, and something really interesting inside. I think bureaus are great for this look, the surprise and delight that you might find on the inside, and especially when I'm working it reminds me of what I do in my studio. So let's take a closer look at the project. As always, the first thing that I like to do when starting a furniture piece is to remove all of the hardware on the actual piece and then give it a good old clean. Now you could use a few different things, TSP watered down, you can buy special grime cutters, or if you don't have any of the above, a watered down solution of dish soap will take away anything greasy from the surface of the timber. Chalk paint does not require any prep work. All it needs is a good old clean and off you go. Also, what I might add is that gives you a chance to get acquainted with what's going on with the actual piece. Here I've noticed there's a scratch through the surface of the varnish, another one there, and there's quite a nasty chip in the corner which has had a really bad fill, but I will sand that down. If you have deep scratches, you might want to fill them and then give them a good old sand, because you will see that through your paint finish once you've waxed and finished. Also with this piece, well, that's a nice find. It has a key. I didn't know it had a key. So I was thinking I had to go through all of my old keys to find a key for this piece. A key with a rather pretty tassel, which might actually stay. I quite like that tassel colour. Very nice. The drawers inside here are really good wood. This is a modern reproduction. It looks like an old piece of furniture. We have a lot of this in the UK, modern made, within the last 30 to 40 years, with good veneer on the front, which unfortunately is quite scratched. But the drawers inside, great. It's wonderful timber. It smells fresh as a daisy inside. So I'm going to probably, to save myself time, this is for me, I'm not going to paint the inside of the drawers. If you're doing this for sale, then yes, give it some paint inside. Surprise and delight, something lovely inside. We will go to town on the inside of the actual bureau. I think this will be lovely with something exciting. There's no leather insert in these. These usually have a leather insert, which means I can do something really fun on this surface. So let's get stuck in with the cleaning, and then we can move on to mixing our very zesty colour. Whilst I'm waiting for the project to dry and the filler to go off, I'm going to trial a few colour mixes because I promised you a zesty project and I really want to do a burnt orange piece of furniture, and this is where I'm going with it, a kind of a brick ready burnt orange tone. So I've got a few colours that I've pulled out, one of which is Barcelona orange, the other is primer red. I've also got Enfleur and a touch of burgundy. I might not use the burgundy, I might not use the Enfleur, but I'm going to trial out a few colour mixes until I'm happy with the overall colour that I've got, and then I can repeat that recipe into my main colour mix. Okay, so what I've found is that I really like just the mix of Barcelona orange and primer red. I have pepped it up with a little something, but I'll explain that as I go along. The two colours that I like on my colour mixing is these two. So one's slightly more primer red and the other one's slightly more Barcelona orange. The same kind of mix, but just one's lighter than the other. Orange being the lighter tone, there's more orange in there. I have pepped it up with a colour mix that I made a couple of weeks ago. That was for the sink cabinet. I mixed a colour where I used Enfleur and Furl as a colour mix, which was this. Now, what I would say is just straight Furl into one of those colours should be just fine, but I've run out of Furl. This is all I've got left, so this is what I'm going to reuse into that colour mix. So I'm going to go gently with adding my two colours and then pep it up with a little bit of this Furl Enfleur colour mix, and hopefully we'll get the perfect burnt orange. So that's my first coat on the exterior of the bureau, and I'm really happy with the colour. I really love it. It's very earthy, terracotta, just what I was looking for. So let's turn our attention to the interior of the bureau. I'm gonna start working this first because there will be connections between the two things, the inside and the out. So I'm going to be using one of IOD's brand new paint inlays. I absolutely love the paint inlays. Yes, they're a little bit unpredictable, but I kind of like that about the product, and that you get what you get. And I love that. So this rustic inside is going to be gorgeous. Let me show you the gift pack that they kindly sent me with their new products. Absolutely beautiful. I'm going to move the paint inlays out of the way because they're ultimately what we're going to be using. But they sent me some moulds, which are gorgeous. I'm going to quickly go through them. Toadstools, little doors. These for me are going to be more crafting projects, I think. Some lovely botanicals in here. And what is this one called? Dewdrop Pond. There's the clay to use on the moulds. And we've got the inks for the stamps, some new ink colours that have come through. I'm not going to go through them all because some of you will have already seen me showcase some of these. Here's some of the stamps. I love the stamps as well. Definitely crafting projects, but although I do love these on furniture with chalk paint, they look amazing. And something that I haven't used in a long, long while, and definitely not on the YouTube channel, their transfers. Look at these amazing transfers. Let me show you the back. I'm actually considering framing some of these because I just think they're absolutely gorgeous. So picture frames, painted background of my choice, and then framing them. Look at the eggs, absolutely beautiful. So where's the other one? There you go. So lovely botanicals with wild animals in there, gorgeous. So they're absolutely beautiful. Let's go back to the paint inlays, and I'll show you the two options. I have got other paint inlays, but I just think I'm really urging to go with these new ones. So this is the first one. What's this one called? Malage. I can't even read that. I'm pronouncing it wrong, probably. I'm not even going to say the names, but there's the pictures. Look on the back. This is the one that I initially thought would be great inside the bureau because they're all in little sections. I can place them in the synthesis that I want to create on the inside. But my heart just stops a beat at this one. And it's a big image, and the interior of this bureau is much smaller than the image. Let me show you the back. 8 sheets that form one big image. Now I've just measured, and if I cut here, the image will end about here and here on the lower half of the bureau. So I'm going to lose some of that. But I think that composition with the dark tree just tipping over and nearly a full tree there will work. Also, all of the little cubby holes, I'm going to have to play around with that and see how it goes. I think I'm going to have to rise up onto the drawer front, then into a cubby hole. The others will go in. I may have a bit of spare from here and here to kind of blend it in. I'm just going to go for it. I think as well, you get 2 uses at least from these. So if I pull some off and I need some spares, this kind of the sky kind of fades away as it goes up. So I'm just going to risk it for a biscuit and see what I can achieve with this. As long as I get the main image on the bottom, this is the place where I'm going to be looking at. So, but I do want it to kind of go in and around those edges. So this should be fun. Let's get stuck in with mixing a base colour for the interior. I'm not going to go white. I think I'm going to mix up a country grey, Paris grey, old white mix. So it's kind of a bit stony but grey-y. I think that will work really well with the terracotta exterior. So my 2 layers of paint, my colour mix inside, have thoroughly dried through, which has allowed me to bring over the paint inlays. Now, these do come as a set of 8 images that connect together to make one full one, as you can see on the back. Use the back of the packaging to work out how the pattern connects. What I would say is make sure you lay them down on a dry surface. Don't lay them on the wet paint, because the carrying sheet will pick up your paint and cause an anomaly on the surface. As you can see, I'm kind of just mapping out where I think the best of the pattern will be. So there will be a slight overhang that will come off, which is good for me really, because I'm going to need every little bit of extra pattern to kind of go around these corners. That will be very complicated. Wish me luck for that one. So now that I know where I kind of want to work these out, on the back of the paint inlays there's a gridded pattern, so that will help me cut through the sheet in the lines that I want. So I'll be able to make loose marks where I want to cut them. Also, I must say, on the carrying sheet, can you see there's a border? This must be removed, because if you leave that on there and connect the next pattern, you'll be missing a pattern. So you need to snip this off with a pair of scissors as well. I'm going to do that as I go along. You might want to take all of the edges off first. But I'm going to work from this side, knowing that he sits really lovely to one side. I'm going to work each sheet as I go along. Then I'm going to bring the upper sheets, which is more trees and sky, and work out which is the best places to place these into the cubby holes. Let's get stuck in. As you will have seen, I took great care in marking out every little section to come round the corners underneath this connection. I've made them all individual elements. The pattern goes in and up the back. So I've cut it along this edge, and I've got little sections which are here to go into each one. I've left that one longer so it can go up and over the drawer. And then once we've got all of these on, I can then work the back sections and bring them round to marry into the other side. Yes, it's complicated. It's a little bit like sewing. If you want to meet your seam allowance and make sure that the pattern match works, wallpapering, sewing, it's kind of a little bit like that. Also, I've taken a little pencil and made a little cross where these three connect. I'm going to start with the biggest three. I think I'll feel more comfortable once I've got these three on. I'm going to paint the whole surface with my base colour, which is this. I'm going to use chalk paint to inlay the paint inlays. What else do I need to tell you? You can do this with lacquer. Of course, you've seen me do it with lacquer as well. But I'll work these three sections. I'm going to go with my technique of just spritzing the surface of the paint inlay slightly, so it's got a little bit more, it's a little bit more pliable as it goes down. So you've got to work quite quickly, paint on, inlay in, inlay in, inlay in, and don't panic, just go for it. It's one of those things that you don't want to be lifting and pulling back because you will transfer some of the paint. So it's not a one-time thing only. You've just got to be precise and get on with it. So in for a penny, in for a pound, let's go for it. Okay, so it's now time to release my paint inlay. As you can see, it's kind of touch dry. It has gone more or less opaque again. So that gives you an indication that this is dry enough underneath to release the paint inlay. You could use a water spritz on the surface of one full area and slowly release them. I'm going to use a sponge today because I'm going to carefully go for each little section. You don't really want to allow the water to sit back on the painted surface that you've just removed, if that makes sense, because the paint is still active. It can bleed. So I'm just going to be very careful and work each section at a time, releasing the paint inlay kind of level with the piece of furniture, not straight up, kind of rolling it back. So let's get stuck into the first section that we applied and see what we've got. Fingers crossed again. So I'm now day 2 of my project. Just stepped back into the workshop this morning. It's cold, coat's back on. It will come off a little bit later, I'm sure. And I'm taking stock of all of the work that I did yesterday. This is good and dry, and I'm really happy with it. There's a few little anomalies that I would like to touch back in. This tree didn't turn out so well. I think the paint was still quite wet and probably quite thick on that section. The little folly, I would like to touch that in with a little bit of hand painting. I'm going to mix up a colour somewhere between Oxford Navy and Old Violet for the different shades. I'm going to probably knock that down with either a white or country grey. I'm just going to spend a little bit of time marrying in the colours because there's about 3 different colours in here going from dark to light. The other thing that I've got to do is, one thing is address the drawer, because that'll be wedged in with the amount of paint that went onto it. So I've got to release the drawer, tidy that up, make it nice and neat, put the handle back on to pull it out. And I did say that I wanted to go up these sides as well. So how I'm going to tackle that is, each section that went into the cubby hole here, in this case, you can see there's a little bird there and there's a little bird there. That was the piece that came from inside there. I am going to apply another coat of paint to the sides and add these up the sides. So it should return the pattern. So everything that it's almost like a mirror image. So what was sat in there will go up that side. What was sat in here will go down that side, if that makes sense. It is the second pass. It will be much lighter. I'm using it as a guide. If I do need to go back in with a little brush and paint things in, I will do. So there's a lot of work to go into this. I really want it to be absolutely perfect, and I really wanted that pattern to travel. And of course, I've used nearly every sheet in this packet to make sure that I've got everything going on in here. So I'm going to reuse the ones that I've previously removed, which are now dry. So let's get stuck in with a little bit of hard work. Okay, so whilst I'm waiting for the other inlays to dry, I'm going to tackle some of the discrepancies, the things that are missing from the pattern. You've just seen me playing around with some colours to try and recreate all of the colours that are in the background scene of this beautiful image. I mixed up Oxford Navy, graphite, pure, a little bit of my background colour, and some of the rusty orange in there, which knocked back the blue tone, so it kind of made it a little bit more greyy. I suppose it just takes a little playing around with your colours to get the right shade. And I feel like I've got a pretty good palette here. I've just popped them onto a tray lid. That's my dark colour. I've got my light colour to hand, and that's my mid-tone. I'm tending to mix a little bit of the background colour with the mid-tone. That's probably a fraction too dark, but I'm just going to paint by numbers. Literally, I'm looking at the scene where there is areas that are missing pattern and just going back in. The little folly needs a little bit of work, where the hinges where we need to add some tree background, and a few of the sky stratas in the background, they need a little bit of a touch up. So I'm just going to work over it closely. I will try and get you some close-up so you can see how this is done. Also on my little tray, I've spritzed a little bit of water. This will add a little bit of fluency to my paint. Also, these are the brushes I'm using, really fine tip brushes. This is actually, I think this is Japanese. That's the head of the brush. So that'll be really good for those stratas. I've got paint on my face. That run along the cloud lines and maybe the roof of the house. And then I've got these two little smaller brushes for the tree work, and I'm working between the three of them. So I'm gonna crack on. I will try and get you some close-up so you can see just how this is working out for me. Okay, so that's all of the hand painting complete in some of the areas like the hinge marks in the trees, which was gone or it didn't quite meet the surface. And also I added a trunk to this tree because it was kind of floating, so I've added a trunk. So it is well worth matching up your colours and just putting those finer details back. Now for sealing the paint inlay, there's a couple of ways that you can seal paint inlays. You can use an atomizer with 50-50 water and water-based lacquer and give it a light mist, a couple of light mists over the surface. This should really seal that paint down. It's a little bit like when you apply makeup and you want to kind of set it. So think of it like that, set it down. But I'm not going to use my 50-50 mix with water. I'm going to keep it really quick and simple. And I'm going to go with, this is an actual oil-based lacquer made by Rust-Oleum, and it's a semi-gloss. So I'm going to give it a couple of spritzes along the surface of everywhere. It'll help me get into these cubby holes. I may, once this is dried, good and proper, I may go back over with a wax finish. The only reason I'm saying to do this, and rather than go for a straight wax finish, even though this is paint, it can still be a little bit precarious after the wax is cured. So this first, wax over the top, you'll get that lovely soft luster. All that's left to do now is simply give the whole piece a top coat of clear wax and add its hardware back to the drawers. Thank you so much for joining me today. Who knew that simple and sophisticated would take quite so long? If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you like what you see. I've got plenty more tutorials just like this one. I will catch you all next time.
yeah.